Hey everybody, how are you?
Good for you.
Great, thanks. I'm Cindy Coyne, and I'm running to be your next Lieutenant Governor. It's a pleasure to meet you all, and thank you for being here. I serve on the Barrington Democratic Committee, and I know how valuable your time is, and so I appreciate the mission of spreading the Democratic mission out there and seeking good qualified candidates for your local and state offices. So thank you for the contribution that you've made. So the reason I'm running for Lieutenant Governor is because I know, like you, I'm concerned about the rising cost of living. I'm concerned about the challenges facing our state, and I'm concerned about the public's confidence in their own government. And I do honestly believe that the office of Lieutenant Governor is underutilized. So let me give you a little bit of background of me. I was born and raised in Pawtucket. I raised my family in Barrington. I have 4 young adult children that are out there, productive. They're working. They graduated from college. I have a very supportive husband and 2 parents who really honed in on a set of values such as hard work, integrity, transparency, and accountability. And my dad told me when I was growing up there wasn't anything that I couldn't do if I didn't put my mind to it. So I was schooled at St. Raphael Academy, and I went to URI and on a full scholarship, and I was a swimmer, and he really encouraged me to be the best I could be at whether it was swimming, whether it was academics, and he was a state trooper himself. And so he encouraged me to apply to the Rhode Island State Police. And at a time when most people at that time in the early 80s didn't think women could protect and serve like men, well, we showed them differently. I was one of the first women to graduate from the State Police Training Academy, and I served 20 years on the State Police. And that set of values that my parents brought me up on were the same set of values that were important as a state trooper. So integrity, accountability, transparency, hard work, and being accountable for your decisions. Okay, so I served 20 years. I loved my career in the state police, and I loved serving the public. And when I retired, I thought, well, what am I going to do now? And I still wanted to serve the public, and my last job on the state police was dealing with policy and procedure. Okay, I really enjoyed that. Maybe I'm policy wonk, but I really enjoyed it a lot. So I'm thinking, how can I put the two together, serving the public and policy? So I decided to run for town council in Barrington. And I was the highest vote getter. That was back in 2010, and I really enjoyed serving on the Barrington Town Council. I like dealing with quality of life issues and making people in my town feel comfortable and served by those who represented them on the town council. And then in 2014, I decided to run for the state senate. And I was the first Democrat elected in my district in over 100 years. And that's representing Barrington, Bristol, and East Providence. And so I served for 8 years in the state senate. And the best part about that, and we have a couple of state senators and reps here, and I can appreciate your hard work because it's not easy. You have to deal with relationship building. You have to network. It's so hard to get a piece of legislation passed because not only does it have to pass out of committee, but it has to pass on your floor. And it's not just your own floor, it's got to pass in committee on the House side, and I was a senator, and then it's got to pass on the House floor. So it's a lot of work to get legislation passed, but it requires good relationship building. And so that's what I bring to the table, my public service, the integrity, the accountability, the transparency from how I was brought up, being on the state police, serving my town, and then serving the state senate. And I think when we talk about the lieutenant governor, there's only one constitutional charge for the lieutenant governor, and that is to be ready and prepared to take over as governor if that should happen. That has happened 7 times in our history, most recently as early as 2021. So that's the only constitutional charge. So you have to think about who's running for lieutenant governor, and of the people that are running for lieutenant governor, who brings the most experience and institutional knowledge to that position that you feel comfortable being your next governor should that happen. Now, next, there's 18 statutory duties, okay? Of those statutory duties for lieutenant governor, there are 3 areas that are very important. You chair the Small Business Advocacy Council. You advocate for small business. Are there any small business owners here? Okay. Do you realize, and maybe you do know these statistics, but CNBC ranked Rhode Island number 44 in 23, number 46 in 24, and Wallet Hub just ranked Rhode Island number 50 out of 50 for starting a small business a month ago, okay? Right, so as your chair of the Small Business Advocacy Council, we need to fix those nationwide rankings, and that's gonna be a priority of mine. Next, you chair the Long-Term Care Coordinated Council, and that has to do with long-term care and those issues. Now, my mom was a caregiver for a long time for my dad. He passed in 2015, but he had Alzheimer's. And my mom worked really, really hard to keep him at home. And she was able to do that for about 5 or 6 years, and then she had to put him in assisted living, and then eventually a locked ward, and it was very hard. For anybody who has dealt with someone with Alzheimer's and dementia, you know how very, very difficult it is, and it puts a toll on the person who is doing the caregiving. So my priority with the Long-Term Care Coordinated Council is to give more resources and to support the caregivers that we have here in Rhode Island. They take that economic burden off the healthcare system. They need the support to keep their loved ones at home as long as they can. And I'm gonna work really, really hard for the caregivers here in Rhode Island. And I support, currently, there is a family state tax caregiver tax credit currently making its way to the General Assembly, and I certainly support that. And then finally, you chair the Emergency Management Advisory Council. There's no one running for lieutenant governor that has more experience when it comes to emergency management preparedness than someone coming from the state police. And we can see how important emergency management is when we just went through the blizzard of 2026, okay? And we have the Director Pappas speaking and talking to us about how important it is to be prepared and being able to collaborate with the other local states or the states in our region to be able to bring more resources in. There's nothing more important than your safety, okay, when it comes to emergency management preparedness. Additionally, I'd really like to focus on resiliency planning, okay, for flooding, for hurricanes. We live along the coast. You know, that's going to be one of the areas that I'd like to see elevated a little bit more about resiliency planning. That being said, those are the 3 key issues that you chair as Lieutenant Governor. There are many other important areas of statutory duties. And finally, you have the flexibility to prioritize initiatives. I really think the public's confidence in government is shaken. I live on the East Bay, so I have to go over the Washington Bridge, okay? It's very difficult. I was here 45 minutes early because I want to make sure that I get here on time. There's so much time I waste, but I was going to Woonsocket Dems Committee 2 weeks ago, okay, and there was a car fire on the bridge. I got stuck in traffic for 45 minutes and did not move. I had to go all the way to Pawtucket, 295, backtrack to try to get to Woonsocket. But that's because of the bridge, and we don't know what's going on. Even the Mount Hope Bridge, they won't release records. So I think we should at least explore the ability to be able to have an Office of Inspector General. It doesn't mean we have to. I want to take a working group and explore whether or not it's feasible and there's function for an Office of Inspector General. And then finally, I don't know who the next governor is going to be, but it's all about relationship building. It's about collaborating. It's about giving the taxpayers, you know, the services that they deserve. So whoever is the next governor, I'm an independent thinker, okay, but I'm a project-oriented person. I'm willing to work with whoever the next governor is, and I'm really excited about that. And with that, if you have any questions at all. I'm just really excited about this journey. I want to bring my experience and institutional knowledge to the office. And when the time is appropriate, I respectfully request your endorsement. And with that, if you have any questions. Yes, sir.
What do you think is the cause of the ranking 50th in the state?
I have the whole survey here. I would be happy to be able to give you that, but labor costs, even I have a few notes right here. Labor, office space, state and local tax rates. Small businesses want to ease the tax burden. They want some regulatory reform, and they want, and I do truly believe this, that our strong education system helps make a strong workforce. So there's so much work to do when it comes to small business. There's more than one issue, and so we have a lot of issues that we have to tackle, but I'm ready to do it. I've got the energy. Yes?
So I have two questions. One, you talked a lot about relationship building and how that's important,
Yes.
both in your career in the past and what you want to bring if you are in this role. So I guess my first question is, as I may be biased because I work for a municipality, but I think a lot of things that affect people's day-to-day life happen at the municipal level. And
Yes, I agree.
and if you were to be a state office holder, how would you build relationships in different municipalities that you may not already have relationships in? So that's first question. And then second is, I was am still one of my grandfather's caregivers who has dementia and Alzheimer's. So that is something that is very important to me, and my mom worked very hard to be able to keep my grandfather at home with her and my dad, and was really only able to do that for about a year after my grandmother passed away. And what type of specific advocacy or things would you advocate for to help ease that burden of people trying to keep their loved ones at home?
Thank you for both your questions. Regarding the relationship building and the local municipalities, having come from serving on the Barrington Town Council, I know how important the issues are that they deal with. And some can be very divisive, like turf, okay? So fresh grass versus artificial turf, okay? And it's amazing how many people come out to talk about that. But it's true, and I think being able to have been there and understand how important these are, they're quality of life issues. You love your town of Cumberland, okay? You pay a lot of taxes, okay? If having regular grass versus turf matters to you, then your voice should be heard, okay? So if there's something that we can do in my office, in the Lieutenant Governor's office, that can help, I can always use it as a bullet pulpit. But I would like you to know that even though I'm serving on a statewide basis, that I've already been out talking to different mayors. I'd like to also come and talk to you at some point in time, or with you, to find out what's important to your town. But it's about having relationships and continuing that dialogue with the mayors or the town administrators to make sure that in my role as Lieutenant Governor, we're covering what we need to for your town. And second of all, in regards to caregiving, I saw what my mom, went through, and even my in-laws, having to make that decision to go on to, an assisted living is, heartbreaking when you know that they have to leave the home that they love and that life will never be the same, okay? So it's about the stress, okay, and trying to relieve some of that and making sure that our caregivers have the support that they need. So, there are networks out there, but I want to make sure that those in Rhode Island who are caring for their loved ones, to make sure that they have the dignity and continue to have the dignity and live with dignity, it's important that we're making sure they're getting what they need. So whatever resources or network I need to use to be able to ensure that that's happening, we can cover that in the Long-Term Care Coordinated Council, for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes?
What made you want to come out of retirement, so to speak, from the Senate to run for Lieutenant Governor?
Thank you. That's a great question. Because I'm a public servant at heart. I love it. I love serving the public. And I feel like I have so much experience and institutional knowledge. It would be just sad to put it on a shelf and let it stay there. I want to continue to share that. And if I can do that and I can share that with you and make Rhode Island a better place, like I said, to go back to what I said initially, the office is underutilized. There's so much more that we can do. I want to be that person that does that for you.
Thank you.
Of course. Yes.
You mentioned about small business and education. What are your thoughts on how to drive continuous improvements for students?
Support the education system. You know, I've always, and I didn't really talk about my record in the Senate, but if you look at any of the education bills I've supported, you know, I'm a strong advocate for public education, but I think there's a good balance between, you know, your charter school or mayoral school and public schools. People have choices. I think supporting a strong education system, especially when it comes to the public education, is a must, and I will continue supporting education. If I want to go back to the record at all, I was a sponsor for you know, the high capacity ban on magazines, and also I was a sponsor for the ghost gun bill. So I was a strong public safety advocate. Not to get off track, but I failed to mention some of the things I did in the Senate. And I chaired a committee having to do with elder abuse and financial exploitation. Yes, Rep. Solomon, we worked together on that bill and got that passed, so it was great legislation. And there was a whole bunch of things I did, but I'm a strong advocate for education. So I'll make sure that I support, you know, education bills and workforce. We have, oh, it escapes me the name of it right now, but we want to continue, you know, training our folks even after high school and supporting them in like CCRI and furthering their education beyond, you know, grammar school and high school. Yes.
Promise program.
I'm sorry.
Promise program.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
May I?
Sure, yeah. Go for it.
You spoke about how, and we're dealing with this in the Senate ourselves, about we're ranked 50th in the country, right? And again, this is just what's in the proposal in front of me in finance. There's a talk about a millionaire's tax.
Yes.
Right? And the question I have for you is it something that you support with knowing that 50 percentile on small businesses, do you believe it may drive people out of the state? And it's not about how many millionaires we have in the districts. It's about, do we want to lose small businesses and then everybody becomes the tax burden when those businesses leave?
Right. So.
I think, are you with me on like what I'm asking?
Yes, there's got to be balance.
I feel the same way. And
Yes.
I'm asking you, because it's staggering when I was on the Woonsocket City Council as well, that I'm also seeing it on the state level now. And when RIPAC, he came before you, came before me, and the question I asked last year to Mike DeVies, when he came before me, I said, Mike, do we have a spending problem or do we have a revenue problem? And he said, Senator, you have a spending problem. And you know, and I question that a state with 1 million people in it, we're spending $15 billion a year. And I do question, like, when that revenue dries up, when we do a millionaire's tax, when that revenue dries up and the state spends it, where do we keep taxing? And as the lieutenant governor, and sometimes being the secretary to the governor and having his or her ear, right? You never know who it's gonna be.
Right.
I think we have to come up with better revenue streams, rather than just taxing everybody to death here. I wanna find a way, as a senator, to bring more businesses, make it more business friendly for the state, to get people here. Do you have any ideas that you would bring to the table to try to do that at this point?
Well, interestingly
And
enough.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
Oh, no,
I have
no.
a million ideas.
Well, I do have a million ideas, and they're all charted in the many surveys that I have as to why we're ranked the way we are. And I'm attending, the Boston Globe just promoted, there's a small business town hall that they're having next Tuesday, I believe, on March 10th, to talk about the problems and the ideas for small business. So I'm excited about going to that. I take any ideas that anybody has, but I cannot pinpoint one, because between the costs right now, the tariffs, the regulations, there's a whole host of things that need to be done to help small businesses. What's the number one? When I talk to all these small business owners, they don't pinpoint one area for me. There's a multitude of areas. So it's about talking to the Chamber of Commerce's, it's the Rhode Island Business Coalition, it's Providence Foundation, and many other areas that all have to weigh in. And I'm tracking the different bills that are in to, and most times small businesses are on the defense as opposed to the offense. Right, as you know. So I would be happy to work with you, or if there is a particular bill that you think is helpful to small businesses, let me know, and I'll be happy to testify on behalf of that, please.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I appreciate you coming up here today and
Of
being
course.
before everybody here at the committee. I just, again, like I said, I don't know where that's gonna end up when it's all said and done in
Right.
June, but it's something that it's on everybody's mind.
Yes.
Out of the 38 of us, and it would have been on your mind as one of the 38 when you were there as well.
Mhm.
You wanna make a good decision for the people of Rhode Island. And
Yes.
you're saying to yourself, I get it, right? It on its face, it looks like it's no big deal to most people in this room, until people get in their car and they leave.
Mhm.
And they go to Florida, they move to Texas, that type of stuff. That worries me.
Right.
But on its face, it looks like good legislation, right? So.
Well, hopefully you could all collaborate and come to something that you all can agree on.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Thank you, Senator.
Of course.
Mayor.
Yes.
I would say as a small business, just to say, you're not gonna cut yourself into prosperity. You need people who have money to spend. That's really what it comes down to, right? Disposable income, so, you can cut some of the regulation, I'm sure that would help, but best thing that would help is that people have money to spend so they can frequent your business and spend it there. My question is, where you still feel, bring your experience and your competency, and it seems like I'm at the point where I'm questioning whether or not that matters anymore to run for elective office, so where do you get that, where's that belief for, give me some hope that still matters.
So,
That's what I'm-
okay, two things. All right, I always look at the glass half full. Okay, I'm an optimist, and that's how
Me too, but.
You know, I go through, I go through life like that, but it's up to you guys, okay? That's why I'm here, to at least let you know what your choices are. Choice and competition are both good for democracy. You've got right now on the table 4 people running for lieutenant governor. I'm here to let you know what I bring to the table. If experience and institutional knowledge matter to you, integrity, accountability, being accountable for your decisions is a big thing, because there's a lot of people who aren't accountable for them. Being transparent and being a hard worker and wanting to do what's best for Rhode Island, then vote for me. If not, you have other choices. So I leave it up to you, okay? Okay. Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
Do you have a plan on how to tackle the Public Utility Commission rising rates?
I do not, honestly. I know it needs to be looked at, but I do not have a plan at this moment.
I know when Dan McKee was lieutenant governor, I believe he was starting to tackle some of that, right? Anyone?
I do not know. But I thank you for bringing that to my attention, because I will look into it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Judy.
Just because somebody brought up energy, one of the issues that we're starting to see around the country and even in some parts of Massachusetts is these data centers coming in and sucking up more water and energy than a town about the size of Cumberland could use in a day. And so where do you stand on, it's one thing to say, we're pro-business, we're pro this, we're pro that. Where do you stand on maybe discouraging some of the businesses that do more harm to communities than good, and that could put all of us in a worse situation regarding natural resources and energy, which is a constant concern in Rhode Island?
So I don't know the particulars about that. I will have to look that up. I can tell you, I am concerned about the Act on Climate. I was a co-sponsor of that bill. I'm concerned about pushing it off to 2050. I know affordability, we're in a crisis right now, and we do have to make some adjustments with that. But, you know, I'm really big on wind power and, you know, keeping things clean and safe for our environment. So, but if you want to leave me your information, I'd be happy to get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Yep, sure.
Anyone else?
Thank you for the questions, I appreciate it. Thank you.